Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we end this whole losing series thing?
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's as long as they're in Oakland. I am your host, and it looks like I'm going to be host for quite a while. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I am usually the host of the Locked On MLB podcast. And guess what? I'm still hosting that. I'm doing 2 shows a day, and they are all different. Well, every once in a while I use a clip from this show on there. But for the most part, I'd say it's about 90% new. All right, which is, you know what? All things considered, not a bad ratio. You can follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And if you're posting stuff on any of those social media, make sure to use the hashtag EverydayA's. So we have an idea who's listening to us every single day. Hey, this is a show that's being dropped on Monday the 13th, and I'll tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Yeah. So check it out. That's Prize Picks. So thanks to the A's weekend and the fact that the Texas Rangers took a nosedive, the Seattle Mariners are now in first place. You know, it's frustrating when you see a team that your team couldn't beat and a worse team just smacked them around. That's what happened this weekend with the Texas Rangers. Remember the Rangers, the team that went into Oakland and won 3 out of 4 games, including that wild come-from-behind victory in Game 1 and the frustrating slugfest in the finale? Well, they played the Colorado Rockies, who last I checked were a big pile of stink. And the Rangers went in there and got their butts swept. Now, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, but it is kind of frustrating when you go like, really? Really, really, really? They looked invincible coming into Oakland, and then they lost 4-2, then 8-3, then 3-1. I mean, only one of the games was had a big cushion on there. But there you go. Maybe they were cocky. I don't know. Maybe it's Coors Field and nothing's normal in Coors. But the A's went to Seattle. And thank goodness I got a show off after the Saturday victory, because I thought, well, let's do something positive, because I really don't want to have this show be me recapping series losses. And for a while, it wasn't, because the A's were winning and winning. Did I mention they were winning a whole bunch of series? Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? Well, as it stands, the A's dropped 3 out of 4 to Texas and 2 out of 3 to Seattle. Hey, they didn't get swept, but it was yet another showing where with the exception of Saturday's game, it's like day in and day out, they're letting up 8 or 9 runs. And today was no different. 8-4, and you would have never seemed that close. You know, when I kind of gave a big gulp. I pulled a 7-Eleven and gave a big gulp in the first inning when I saw Mitch Garver get that single to give them the 1-0 lead. And then the second inning, Haggerty drove in a run, Moore drove in a run, Julio Rodriguez hits the 2-run home run. It's 5-0. And Wood, who pitched so wonderfully in that first game against Texas when the wheels started to come off the bus, now it looks like he's hurt. It looks like the man is hurt. He has something. I mean, Kotze said something about he was injured, and it was clear. And I don't think this is kind of the Blake Snell, doing the whole Rodney Dangerfield and Caddyshack. My arm. So the putting him on the, you really stink right now, disabled list. Or for the case of Blake Snell is, you didn't have spring training. Let's put you on the disabled list so you can go spring training. Sorry, the injured list. I keep calling it disabled list. Old habits die hard. So, Wood is probably going to go in the IL, and the A's are going to have to look to Las Vegas. And I'm not talking about for a new ballpark. I'm talking for pitching reinforcements. Lest we forget they still have a minor league team in Vegas right now. And, there's been a bunch of pitchers who've come up. We've already, Blackburn's pitched well. Sears, Stripling's going to be pitching soon. Boyle's on the injured list. Wood's going to go on the injured list. They're probably going to bring up, I don't know, Beto. He gave one start, didn't look that great. Are they going to bring up Hogan Harris to get a start? I mean, what are they going to? Are they going to start Joey Estes? Looked good in his one start, but the starting pitching, which looked pretty good a couple weeks ago, they're getting clobbered, and Mason Miller's getting cobwebs on him. Mason Miller still has unbelievable numbers. What is it? He's 33 strikeouts in 16 and third innings, but holy Toledo. And look, a couple of bad outings can really, really stick out for a relief pitcher, but we've seen Lucas Ursag's ERA start to go up. We've seen TJ McFarland's ERA going up. You just hope that the carriage does not turn into a pumpkin. Let's be positive, shall we? What was positive about today? Ferguson and McFarland pitched well out of the bullpen. Huh? Toro continues to hit. Abraham Toro, he had a home run, threw in another hit. His OPS is now at 811. He's batting .299. Bleday is continuing to hit. He got 2 more hits today. Rooker's continuing to hit. He has 10 homers so far. His average is .292. If you like batting average, if you like OPS, is 1.012. That's pretty good. Langolier's got another hit. And Schumann hit a home run. He also made an error, which stinks. He also grounded into a double play. That also stinks. But yeah, this was not what the A's needed. The A's needed to win that first game. They needed to win that first game and try to take control over this series. What I don't want to see is complacency. What I don't want to see is that, nobody's supposed to do anything this year. They've got to be able to dust themselves off. Well, what is our goal this year? Obviously, we would love to see the A's win the pennant. I think the chances of that happening are extraordinarily small at this point. However, can they, first of all, if they don't finish in last place this year, that's a huge accomplishment. And by the way the Angels are playing, we may not have to worry about that. But as of this recording, they are 4 games under 500. I would love, and did I mention love, to see the A's get to within a game of 500 by June. Because then, you're at least going to June and you're not a doormat. You're playing okay. And if they get there, if they're 4 games under, if they get to within, to be 1 game under, they finished the second half of this month playing very, very well. Thank you very much. So, yes, the series against Seattle stung. And the fact that the Mariners took advantage of matching up with the A's quite well, yeah, that hurt. Because that first game was a winnable game that got out of hand really fast. And that's the key. That's the thing about the game on Friday and the game this afternoon is they got out of hand fast. I was able to do a lot of my chores. I was able to do a lot of Swiffering and do some grocery shopping when you see it, unravel as fast as it did. So we're going to have to take a good, long, hard look and see what we're going to do next. Because, believe it or not, an oddly critical series is right around the corner, starting on Monday. When you're hearing this, that'll go a long, long way for the A's to do that thing that I want them to be, which is just avoid being the worst team in the division. Hey, it's time to talk about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the #1 and the single most fun way to play fantasy sports. It's the number one fantasy sports app. More than 3 million fans agree with me. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports or players. You pick more than or less than or 2 or more player stats, and then you watch the winnings roll in. This season is about to reach the 1/3 mark here in baseball. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your prize pick entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBI, first inning runs, take your pick, more than or less than, add them in prize picks entry today. You're a basketball fan? Well, it's getting really good right now. You get in on the postseason action and win up to 100 times your money on prize picks, as you would as the world's best players take the game to a new level during the basketball postseason. You can use prize picks simply. It's easy to play. You can make your picks and submit your entries in less than 60 seconds. They now offer weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports, and now offer Apple Pay. Prize Picks can give you quick and easy deposit into your account this basketball postseason. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's right. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for the first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. Do you know what? It's really that easy. Hey, where is your go-to place to catch all your sports news and takes? Here's what you need to do. You need to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories. Locked On Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Fire TV's channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Unbelievably, the A's are going to Houston as the better team. That's surreal. It's surreal that we're saying that in mid-May. But the A's are, as of this recording, 3 games better than the Houston Astros. In the last 10 games, the Astros have gone 5-5. The A's have gone 4-6. But the Astros have not looked good this year so far. Now, they did get a sparkling performance from Justin Verlander today, and that's not going to help matters if they can suddenly pitch. But an interesting thing has happened. The A's pitching staff has really fallen off a cliff since the Miami series. But with the exception of Blanco and Verlander, the pitching staff for the Houston Astros has not been anything to write home about. The first game out of the gate, they have Arrighetti is going to be pitching for the Houston Astros, and he's not been that good. And Josh Hader, their closer, while he's pitched better as of late, has not been that good. And you take a look at their once vaunted lineup, John Singleton is getting a lot of at-bats for this team. Jake Myers is getting a lot of at-bats for this team. Pena's having, up the middle, Pena's having a good year so far. Altuve's having a good year so far. Yainer Diaz is having a good year so far. And Kyle Tucker has a ton of power. But Yordan Alvarez has not been the MVP type that people are expecting him to be. They're getting a lot more at-bats to Mauricio Doban than they have for most of their outfield. This is not last year's Astros team. This is not last year's Astro team with the depth in their lineup. This is not last year's Astro team in terms of the strength of their rotation. Now, it's very dangerous to start to act all cocky because in mid-May, the A's are 3 games better than the Astros. However, one thing has been very, very certain about this particular edition of the Houston Astros, and that is they have been extraordinarily inconsistent. They've had a bunch of winning streaks. They have a bunch of losing streaks. They go on a roll, then they fall apart. And every time you think that, okay, they have the victory that's going to set them on a great run, and they went on a horrific run between the middle of April and, between the middle and the end of April, where they went 1-8 for one stretch. They dropped 8 out of 10 games. 8 out of 9 games, I'm sorry. And then they went on a great roll. It's like, oh, they've righted their ship. But then they went on a 4-game losing streak. And there's no rhyme or reason over who's beating them. The Nationals, who are not very good this year, beat them. The Cubs swept them. But then, they play well against Cleveland, and they played well against the Yankees. I mean, it's very, and they play well against the Rangers. So there seems to be no rhyme nor reason for the team and how they win. They just went to Detroit, a team that's not bad, and took 2 out of 3. And Hader, as I said, is starting to turn some things around. Nobody predicted that the Houston Astros would be, at least as of this recording, the 3rd worst team in the American League. The only 2 teams worse than them are the White Sox, who are trying to move to Nashville. So they're the A's 2.0, and the Angels, who just stink. And they stunk before they lost Mike Trout. Now they've lost Mike Trout. So they could be a 100-loss team. The White Sox are guaranteed to be a 100-loss team. And they're the only 2 teams in the American League who are looking up at the Houston Astros. The dangerous part about that is this. You don't think the Astros are that bad, and neither do I. What you got to make sure is they're not getting a little bit of confidence. Winning tonight is key. And the matchup favors the A's. Yes, they're in Houston. Yes, the pitching staff, which was pitching so well, is just getting clobbered. Did I mention clobbered and clobbered even a little bit more? But the matchup of game 1 is Stripling versus Arrieta. Now, Stripling has not exactly been Greg Maddux. Stripling has had his own issues. Stripling has not been necessarily that great. But he is a capable pitcher. He's a major league pitcher. How was his last? I'm going to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. And, okay. His ERA is over 5. He's made 8 starts. A big chunk of that ERA being above 5 is the fact he let up 5 earned runs in an inning and 2/3 against Texas. His ERA jumped from 4.24 to 5.14. So his FIP, which is probably a more accurate way to look at how he's pitching, is at 3.73. Okay? Remember his previous start, he pitched 6 strong innings against the Pirates. The game before that, he pitched into the 6th. In fact, this year, he's truly had 2 bad starts. One, he let up 6 runs in 6 innings against Texas. And then last week, he let up the 5 earned runs in an inning 2/3 against, say it with me, Texas. So Texas has his number. Texas is smacking him around a little bit. In fact, let's just take a quick peek at this. We're looking at his splits right now. How is he doing against? I'm just seeing if they have him by a team. Against Texas, his ERA is above 12. Okay, so I guess it's safe to say, and he pitched poorly against Cleveland, but the A's can't beat Cleveland. All right. So against teams not called Cleveland or Texas, he's pitched okay. He's pitched okay. I'm trying to talk us down from the ledge because they have to win this series. They have to get the Astros on their heels and beat the Astros head-to-head. The goals this year are modest. Stay out of the cellar and stay as close to 500 as you can. And the best way to stay out of the cellar is to beat the teams that are underneath us. I know that's not exactly waving a flag for a championship, but it's a lot better than we thought we were going to see this year. But for heaven's sake, win that first game. I think my dog is barking upstairs. I'm not even going to stop the show. All right, let's hear from our friends at Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the nation's leading online marketplace for life insurance. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Life can be unpredictable, and Policy Genius can take away some of the worries of what your family would do if something happened. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers found Policy Genius the best fit for their needs. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Click the link in the description to get the free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Here's a reminder that Locked On has begun the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day, with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. In today's edition of I Bet You Forgot They Were on the A's, we're going to go to yet another Hall of Famer. And this is someone whose voyage to the Hall of Fame was, well, it wasn't direct. It took a long time. He overcame a certain amount of controversy in his career, but ultimately the proper heads prevailed. And Tim Raines, one of the great base stealers and leadoff hitters in the history of baseball, who did everything you could ever want as a player, wound up as a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Tim Raines played the bulk of his career with the Montreal Expos, where he led the league in stolen bases year in and year out, at least for 4 straight seasons, was always amongst the league leaguers. He was a stolen base king, a batting champion. He had power, he had speed, was a Silver Slugger and an MVP candidate. He was caught in the riptide of collusion when he left the Montreal Expos as a free agent after the 1986 season, and nobody offered him a deal. Well, he got a couple of, lowball offers, but it was collusion. And Tim Raines, who was 26 and in his prime, was available to be signed by anybody. Someday we'll talk about how collusion is the most underrated and, well, the most underrated controversy in the history of Major League Baseball and how it affected multiple pennant races. Just imagine if you were a team that could use a little bit of speed and an all-around great offensive player. All you had to do was offer 27-year-old Tim Raines a contract, and boom, you have him in your prime. And all, at the time, 26 teams said, no! Well, he re-signed with Montreal and continued being an all-star. And eventually the Expos said, you know what, you're 30, we should trade you away. He was traded to the White Sox. That basically gave a new lease on life. He made it back to the playoffs with the White Sox. And then in 96 and 98, he wound up playing in the postseason for the World Series champion Yankees. In 96, he finally got to appear in a World Series. And then there was the Yankees at that time had a weird revolving door of left fielders. They had Raines, they had Chad Curtis, they had Ricky Leday, they had Shane Spencer, and eventually someone had to go. And then Raines was a free agent, and he was an easy one to say goodbye to. So after the 1998 World Series, he picked up his second ring, and he signed a contract with the A's for a bargain basement signing. It was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but still. He was a 39-year-old player who still had some speed. He was no longer the 45 stolen base guy, and he still was a productive hitter. But his time with the A's was marred with not just the typical injuries and health issues that you may have as a 39-year-old playing Major League Baseball. He had a stretch during the season where things started to slow down for him, literally. Now, he had some solid games. He had some solid production, and a couple of games he looked like the Tim Raines of old. But in July of 1999, he was playing a game against San Francisco, and then he had to go to the hospital. And he had exhaustion. No one was quite sure what was going on. His ankles were swollen, his knees were swollen. And this is according to the SABR.org biography. It's written by Norm King. That's the one I'm quoting for right here. He had an issue beyond, as I said, the simple injuries. And that was he needed a kidney biopsy, and he had a form of lupus. And it was incurable, but treatable. The lupus was attacking his kidneys, according to Jeff Pearlman of Sports Illustrated. He lost a lot of weight, and his health basically took a nosedive. And his time with the Oakland A's was short, to be sure. He only played 58 games for that A's team. By the next year, when the A's were back in the postseason, Raines was no longer on the team. And it looked like his career was over. And he was he was not that far away from 3,000 hits. He had 2,500 hits. His stolen base totals were, trailing only Rickey Henderson. But it looked like he was going to finish his career with the A's. And for a lot of people's eyes, his Hall of Fame candidacy went with it. But in 2001, he wound up getting an invitation to spring training to return to the Montreal Expos. And with that, kind of go full circle. In a similar way, Gary Carter had returned to the Montreal Expos to finish his career there. And he played 47 games there and did okay. But then, towards the end of the year, the Expos granted Tim Raines a wish. And that was, he was basically traded for cash so he could finish the season out with the Baltimore Orioles. Why did he want to go to the Baltimore Orioles? Because his teammate on the Baltimore Orioles was Tim Raines Jr. That's right. For a few games, the Raines mocked the Griffeys. Tim Raines got to play with his son for a handful of games. Now, Tim Raines made a comeback in 2002 and managed to play 98 games and get 114 plate appearances as a member of the Florida Marlins. But at that point, he was done. Now, he was, of course, involved in the Pittsburgh cocaine issues back in the 1980s, which made some people, which cast a pall on his Hall of Fame candidacy. There were plenty of other people who were in that as well. It took him 10 attempts to get to the Hall of Fame, but he finally did in 2017 with 86% of the vote, where he got in with Jeff Bagwell and Pudge Rodriguez, two players who have their own baggage off the field in terms of what they may or may not have been using. Let the record show, I believe Jeff Bagwell, Pudge Rodriguez, and Tim Raines are all Hall of Famers, as well they should be. And on his plaque, somewhere between the Yankees and his cameos with the Orioles and the Marlins, Tim Raines was a member of the Oakland A's. Yet another member of the A's that I bet you forgot played for the team. All right, the Astros series starts today. Let's see if it goes better than the Seattle series. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter, or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And make sure to subscribe to this show on YouTube, and also subscribe to Locked On MLB, where I do my other daily show. Talking about the Marlins series that could have gone better. This has been Locked On A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.